Good morning and or whatever time of day it is for you. This is Growing Up in the Wilds of Suburbia. I am your host, Sir Chad Everett Broshears. Today, since we're getting so close to New Year's, it's actually like a week and a couple of days away. Everyone wants, not everyone, let's just take this back. I say that majority of people play this game in life that is go by patterns other people have established. Just like New Year's resolutions. That's not your pattern. It's not yours. Somebody else established it, it caught on, and now it's just like a thing that people do in droves, right? We do it in masses. Now, the washout is incredible because so many people take something on. They have unrealistic expectations without structure to achieve things, either one, successfully, short term, and or successfully long term destination goals, right? Like I'll get there. Once I get there, I'll go back to my old ways. So I am practicing and have been practicing this way for some time, just living all out. It first started in my communication. The way that I would speak with people about who I am was where it really first started. That was some time ago. I mean, it was like back in my 20s, as I was just share with people as genuinely and honestly as possible to get them to understand who I am as a human being, right? What I'm up to, what I'm doing in the world of being a human being. The goals that I have, ambitions, and what I've experienced, where I'm currently at, and tried to stay as congruent as I could to the level of courage that I had. Because lying is weakness, lying is cowardice, and that was at times it would catch me, right? Because it's so much easier to just tell somebody whatever they themselves are wanting to hear than it is what is true and what is really at your core. It's so much easier to go the other way. Short term, long term, you create hell. I personally do not prefer that, so I love myself too much to do that to somebody. But that's what I mean when I say that it was starting in my communication. Because as living all out took acts of courage. Other people would say whatever they would say, and in a competition or in a competitive environment of who spends time with who, as we have that, right? We have a competitive environment of who spends time with who. Because we don't have unlimited time to spend with unlimited people. We have to make choices. And I was, in my young and early stages in that kind of tug of war, if you will. It'd be somebody they'd want to spend time with, and they had the options that they had to spend time with whomever, and the desire to say something that was more appeasing or pleasing to the individual was strong enough to be acknowledgeable, but my intent for courage and truth and honesty about myself and integrity was greater than my desire to just get the person to want to be around me. So I outweighed it by being true to myself the majority of the time. Again, the reason why I'm telling you this is because it is how you start creating change in your life. You can't just expect that, and this is why so many people fail on their New Year's resolutions. They don't have the structure, they don't have the practice, they don't have the establishment in their life. Their life isn't established in such a way that it is capable of producing the result that their goals are associated with, short or long term. It's a very common reason for washout. I'll just do it next year. Also, New Year's resolutions has a way of becoming a crutch for procrastination. And those are patterns that we develop over time. So now I kind of outlined the undesirable aspects and some insights on some of the truths about just setting up goals for long-term desires. The other side is how to practice it. As I mentioned, start creating it in language. Now, I'm not saying fake it till you make it. but you practice it until you master it. I'm not a fan of the fake it till you make it, because it creates concepts of deception where when you frame it as practice it till you master it, that one creates a forgiveness of not having accuracy and an intent to become the best that you can at it. So practice it till you master it. Language first is a very effective way that I've experienced, and the studies show that as well. And then putting something in. So moving it more to a kind of a more advanced place. I have practiced putting myself into areas that I'm uncomfortable. I've been doing this since I was, actually a child. Just so I'm so addicted and driven for development. Moving forward, and I've mentioned this in a couple of recent episodes, is giving myself 90 days to try something, whatever it is. So I've always wanted to take singing lessons. I have a good friend of mine. This guy can sing, he can play guitar, he's gifted. He's a good friend of mine named Jeremy. Actually, two friends named Jeremy, both of them are incredibly gifted, but one incredibly gifted with instruments, the other one is incredibly gifted with guitar as well as singing. And he would help me with a little bit on the vocal lessons. Nothing significant, just a little bit here and there. But I didn't really put enough on the line when he did. This is at least a decade ago. I didn't put enough on the line for Jeremy's lessons to be effective for me, because I wasn't putting out enough that I was going to put the work in that's necessary to see improvement. He just gave me, I just absorbed some tidbits, and that's about the end of it. It wasn't his effort, it was mine that was lacking. He did a great job. Now I'm putting it out on the line. 90 days of vocal lessons. And I'm putting it on as a 90-day window per each thing. So the first 90 days will be it'll be either dance, sing, or an instrument if I can find sax lessons. So I'm going to pick one for the 90 days. If I like it and I want to continue it, I will continue it, but I'm going to add another for 90 days. So the next one. As I've mentioned before as well, I have taken a bit of martial arts in my life, and I'm returning to martial arts. So I will be going back in. So the disciplines that I'll likely be what I am seeking is what I already have, a blue belt in Aikido. If you're not familiar with that, it's popularized in America by Steven Seagal. Very defense-driven art, not an offense-driven art. So more like my personality. I don't want to hurt anybody. I'd rather neutralize issues and leave people who are not hurt. But going back to martial arts and continuing that, because it's something that I've loved. Finance and time got in the way in my 20s, and then kind of stayed consistently in the way after. So going back to that. Going into another, it's like it's consistently finding the next thing to put myself through. Trying multiple different instruments over time. This entire process is that it's pushing me out of my comfort zone, and it's adding more value to what we would all want, right? We all want enrichment in life, right? We want to feel like we have an incredibly well-lived life, right? We want to have it at the end that you've lived it all out. We just get tunnel visions focused on one thing and say, you know what, I need to earn this much money. And then life starts to fall to the wayside when that hyper-focus of earning so much money is there. And relationships deteriorate, things like that. I don't want that. I have a mentor, regularly mentor, and I am also using this practice in my mentorship as well, which is 90-day window, and having a specific individual that would be my focus for that 90 days for mentorship. Whatever it is that I can offer that person, and this goes through all 8 areas of maturity. And I am working to build out my life in such a structured way that I'm capable of doing all 8 areas of maturity consistently at such a proficiency that people's lives change in my presence immediately. That's what I'm living into. So if you're not familiar with the 8 areas of maturity that's in previous videos, I do encourage you to go back. It's easy to find it once you get to my channel. Just look for those. They are there. There's a series that's just a superficial introduction to it. It'll go further in depth. This continues to build out. I do have people working with me. We've agreement that we work together on building out the material so that it becomes more tangible and not something that's just always with me in the center, but more of just the awareness of the center. So the 8 areas of maturity. And my goal is to try to take, is not to try, my goal is to take on one individual for every area of that maturity, of those 8 areas, to give more insight and depth to help them balance themselves out, mature, and develop into their next phoenix, if you will, the next stage of their life. So, whatever your goal is, you don't have to use mine. I'm up to a big game. I'm up to something that I want to leave this world so much better that I've lived here. Again, as I've mentioned many times before, that's why I pick up trash when I go into the restrooms, or if I'm walking around in public, or wherever I'm at. If I see trash, I usually pick it up. To a varying degree, right? Like I'm not going to, walk down the roadway on a date and pick up, 15 bags full of trash. But, if I'm walking past something and there's multiple pieces of garbage, I'll pick it up to throw it away. I don't walk over it, and I don't leave it going, oh, it's somebody else's job. Now, with the, littered roadway, that's a whole nother situation that it's time and place, right? So I pick up garbage wherever I go. I try to put things back in order. I do. I put things back in order, and my intent is always to make every place a little better than I've been there. So it's my game, my goal, it's my game in life. That branches off into what I'm up to, which is a much bigger game. If you want to achieve these goals, you have to practice them. You will fail, and you'll fail often. I've failed so much, and I'm still failing, but I like failing because I know that at some point in time I won't have an option. Failure won't be there anymore because I've failed too many times. I've worn out. I've run out failure. So I play that game. Right now I have a very, very consistent, very strong focus on my physical well-being. I need to be as healthy as I possibly can. I need to be as functional as I possibly can in every single dynamic of human being so that I can ensure that I have more time to do this, both at the moment as well as longevity in life. In order for me to be effective, I need to practice to the point of proficiency so that things are more orderly, they're more structured, so that I can move through the process so much faster. If you yourself take on a process and take on a goal like this in life, you're more likely to see these big changes. In the beginning, it starts off fairly subtle. And that was my experience. It was fairly subtle. And it was more in the way that people knew me and the way that I knew people. And I noticed that I was getting more intimate connections with people because I was willing to be connected. And I had to start someplace. That was where I started. So if this is where you're at and you want to make change in your life and you want to live all out, in order to do that, you got to start practicing it today. You don't plan on tomorrow being a complete 180 from where you currently are. If you believe that that's going to be the case, you can very likely burn yourself out. You don't have enough practice in it. It's like trying to get under a 400-pound bench press and you've never done it a day in your life, ever, or even done a push-up. So if you want to see that kind of change, you got to work your way up to it. It's so much easier for us to look at the physical body and say, hey, I can grasp that concept. But then you don't give yourself the same forgiveness when it comes to practicing other things. You just have to stay consistent. Keep practicing. Find good mentors. Oh, like I said, I'm going to be taking, I am, not I'm going to be, I currently am taking on mentees, like taking on people to mentor in this process. Now, what does that look like? It has a lot of different views. So, a lot of ways to see it, and it's not always the way that people expect it to look, but the influence is still there. I get influenced by it too. I get developed every time I do something like this. It's the whole thing is that everyone wins, and that's my game. Is that everybody wins, and we try to reduce chaos in the world. Live it all out. You gotta understand what you want too. So to make that as simple as I can, what is it that gets you to feel something when you think about it? And go through as many categories in different situations in life. If you notice that it's consistently centering around other people and romantic relationships, then it's likely that you need to put a lot of work in on yourself, so that whatever it is that you're feeling regularly that you want to experience that you're likely not experiencing, then that's going to be your work. It's not other people. Nobody else is at fault. It's you. Sure, there's people out there that have, that are just nefarious. They're not up to good. They're out to cause harm to other people. Yeah, they exist, but on a percentage level, that's a very small percentage of human beings on this planet, by comparison to people that are just somewhere in the middle. They're not out to cause harm. They're not out to cause to help either. They're just existing. And my goal is to try to wake those individuals up as much as possible. So find out what it is that you're missing. The thing that just continues to show up. That's the thing that you want to put your work in on. So, all right. With that, you want to live all out, you got to. You got to start. You got to put the work in order to figure out where you're going to be living all out. And then after that, it's just a matter of practicing. Give yourself the forgiveness. Don't expect an infant to walk, right? They've got a lot of things to do before they get to the point they can walk. Let's do this together. All right? Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Hit the like button. Obviously, if you like the video, help it get pushed into the algorithm so that we can get more exposure for people, so that they can see more opportunities and potentially expand upon the torchbearer that I've created myself to be. Get the light out there a little bit more, so there's a little less chaos. If this video is something that's inspired you, that you think of somebody in your life while you're listening to it, that may be the person you want to share this video with, that you can potentially break the ice on the subject, so that you can get this conversation started in a way that you're able to explore it with them. I'm a good person to put the emphasis on, so that you can say, well, Chad said this or whatever, if you're not at that position of feeling as confident about yourself, so that you can continue the point that you want to understand, or get the other person to understand, and possibly even get yourself further down the ladder of understanding, if you will, or further up the ladder, whichever way you want to go about it. The goal is definitely to get a higher understanding. So if this works, to share it with somebody to break the ice, to get the conversation started, you may find that brings a lot of satisfaction. Is, at least if nothing else, you'll be able to get past the blinders, if you will, or the blind spot that may not be, the blind spot that isn't present to you because the conversation hasn't started. Okay, well, until next time, if you want to make that life that you're living all out, that powerful, potent life that has you feel like it's well lived, then it's time for you to really just put in the work. Do it with me. Let's create a powerful life. It's a little sticky, but hang in there. We'll get there. All right, until next time, I am your host, Sir Chad Everett Broshears, and this is Growing Up in the Wildest Suburbia. We'll catch you next time.